There you go.
Zoom.
Let me post the Zoom link in the
Yeah, go ahead.
channel.
You can still hear us, right, John?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right,
That Zoom link was posted twice, or are they both the same?
they're both the same. I just copied it twice. All right, we'll get started.
Is there any password?
It's in the link. It's part of the link. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about how to use multiple databases in a Rails app. Our agenda, we're going to go over a couple of use cases, when to use multiple databases, and or maybe not, depending on your situations and just some considerations there. We're going to be talking about two common strategies for using multiple databases. One where you have a primary writing database, but you also have a read-only database. And then the second use case where you have just straight up multiple databases that can do both writes and reads. We'll have a demo of each, and then we'll talk about some setup and connection management stuff. And time permitting at the end, we'll go over a little bit how replication works in both MySQL and Postgres. I just barely scratched the surface on that. That might be a future talk I'd like to give. It's a very interesting topic. Went down a little bit of a rabbit hole this weekend on that. So, what are some use cases for using multiple databases? Common one is multi-tenancy. You might have a customer or multiple customers that would like all of their data to be entirely separate from other customers, or sometimes the business itself defines that as a rule, and this is just for security of data. Another use case is read performance. If you have background processes in your Rails app that are doing expensive operations, this may impact the performance of the database as a whole. If you have a follower or replica database that's read-only, it has the same data as the main database, that can kind of offload some of the database load activity. Another reason would be security for reading. You have users or large feature sets of an application that are intended to be read-only, then you might want to put that activity on its own database, and then finally you might have read activity that is you might have globally accessed application that needs to be read quickly from different areas. So that might be another reason to use multiple databases. But you could argue against using multiple databases for the same reasons. And I present these just as food for thought. If you're generating a new application, greenfield, and you hear about, hey, you can use multiple databases to, you have follower databases, you could have multiple databases for each customer. I would, that's a big decision, and I would consider just the pros and cons of doing that, because there's usually alternative methods of doing things that might work better. So multi-tenancy, you could, Rails has multiple libraries that handle multi-tenancy, and the names are not coming to me right now, but there's different libraries for Rails that will essentially create like an organization or a company level table, and then all the tables for your customer data basically trace up back to that table, so you can achieve multi-tenancy through that. Yes, all the data lives in the same database, but you can effectively ensure that data is separated. Read performance, maybe you have bad database queries. I would look at the efficiency of those queries, see if you can write them better. Read security, make sure you have good role-based authorization in your application. That's primarily how we define an application. If something should be allowed for write, we fund it, and Rails is a good library for that. And then, for geographic needs, most of our applications these days are hosted on cloud providers. You can have, if you have an application that's accessed on the other side of the world, it's probably a good idea for its application and data to be together as a pair. So instead of one application in multiple databases, you can have multiple applications that with their respective databases. So that being said, I'm going to go over a demo of a read-write database setup. Actually, before that, I'm going to go over the basic sample application connected to one database just to get a baseline. If you attended this talk a couple months ago, or not this talk, but a talk I gave a couple months ago, you'll be familiar with this pizza delivery app. I'm going to spin up a quick Docker MySQL server real quick. We'll start might have to run migrations first on it. Create the tables and set up the schema.
I've had pizza in a year. This may be the best pizza I've ever tasted.
Might have other errors they have to resolve. Oh no. Unknown database.
If you drop it, create it.
I ran the create first. It gave me an odd connection error. There it goes. It must have been starting. There we go. So you won't be spending too much time on the front end of this, but just to show that we have a full Rails application here. I drop out of here, go to localhost. We have a pizza delivery applications. This is a list page with a map. The last talk I gave was on using Google Maps with Rails, and that's why we have a map. And if I come to pizza delivery is new, I can pick a location by dropping a pin on the map and then just selecting the type of pizza that I want to order. When we create that, we have one record.
Pick.
Yep. So here's a standard database configuration. We have some default things that are shared between the environments, but the way this is set up is we have a config for each environment, so development, test, and production. And when you're working in a local environment and you run database create like I just did before, it's going to try to create the development and test databases. And the same thing when you do migrations. That way, you kind of have your test database. What was available? So it looks like I'm sharing Zoom twice.
Well, one is on that window
I got
and
this.
yours is on the screen.
I always forget how to minimize.
On the left, below participants, you can click on that little arrow. Below it. See the little arrow? The
You
green
are
arrow?
screen sharing?
If you click on, no, not that one.
This?
That one, yeah. It'll put it at the bottom.
All right. Not sure I want it on the bottom, but
Well, then you can click it again to put it to the top.
that's good. No, that's good for now. So that's a database config, and then we have a model representing our table with, here's our columns, we have like some pizza information, and we also have some location information. That's not too important for this talk. What is important, what's going to be important later on, is our model inherits from application record. Now, application record is it's known as an abstract class. It's purely just a Ruby class, but this is something that you get in Rails applications that you generate them, that you could alternatively just inherit from active record base, which is the base active record, well, base active record class, but typically we use application record. Doesn't have too much of a purpose right now, but this just says it's a primary abstract class, but this is where we define behavior that's going to be affected in all models. So more to come there. That's our it's a basic Rails application. I'm gonna log into a console. I don't think I need to show anything there. So we'll actually drop this now. I'm going to turn off this database, and then I'm going to spin up one for SQL replication. Let that take a minute to start up. See, it'll say to create. Yeah, it's still starting. Actually, I'm still on the wrong branch. There we go. So create and migrate. Cool. So I come back over to my editor. We have our database configuration looks a little bit different now. I have under development, I have a database named primary, and I have a database named primary replica. The database name is the same, but these databases are living on different servers. And then notably, our replica has a tag of replica true. And this is telling Rails that we only want to read from this particular database when we use it. So if we were to try to write, I'll show a demo of this in a little bit, but if we were to try to write to this database, then we'll actually get errors on it. Nothing's changed with our model, but I mentioned application record before. We now have something called connects to. So it connects to function being called here with our list of databases. So we're telling it that writing to be primary, reading to be primary replica. And this is a little bit confusing because we'll connect to the primary and we can actually do both reads and writes, but this is essentially saying that primary will have primary will have write ability, but primary replica will only have read ability. So let's look at something interesting now. Let's go into our
So that's your definition in the abstract.
yes.
Have you defined those somewhere, or did I miss that?
That's in the database config. So you see how under development.
Okay, the
Yeah.
last time I looked at it,
Before,
that's how I
if you only have one, you don't need to tag them
Right.
like such. You just have.
You're literally just giving them your keys.
I was giving them a name so that
Okay, cool.
I can define these read write rules there. Good question. Just to show this is working and usable. I'm just going to start my Rails app, refresh this. Should be a new empty database. Oh. Let's read the data.
Press a little button. Said the database wasn't even created yet. We can go back to the page.
Already exists.
Maybe you just had to restart the server.
Thought that I had done that. Could be a naming.
Okay, so it's looking for pizza deliveries dev.
Database YAML.
Can the different databases be the same thing? Oh, it's not there.
I was making sure I'm on the right branch. Looks like I am.
Are you talking to the right database?
3300, 3301. Where else did we create?
You have two servers on it? Two MySQL servers on it? Because you're showing a 3300, 3301.
I wanted to see if there's any rail servers running. No. Let me check here.
Maybe you started the Docker on.
Oh, there you go.
wrong
Temporary
branch.
server stopped. You got stuff failing.
Were you on the wrong branch when you started that Docker container, or could that cause?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was just one time. Oh, yeah, you gotta remove it.
I think it might be in a bad state.
Cool.
And then do you have to
Okay,
drop the
man.
database and recreate it?
Shouldn't have to, but I might. I don't know the volume persistent on that.
So yeah, it looks like they're still failing.
What was that?
If you go to your Docker Compose, they're shutting down. Are they supposed to be? Did it start?
Initialization started and did.
It's cute.
They're not in a.
Oh, okay.
They're not
Might
in
still
a,
be up.
they're not in a crash loop. I think they're fine. Yeah, it's connecting here because I can see that.
Back on track.
You're alive.
I think I might have it as.
So try pressing the button. So clearly it's trying to connect and talk to something.
Yes.
And you have this button now in the screen to run the command. So see if the command here will be run against Docker since your terminal doesn't seem to do it.
Explain that.
There's a button right there. It says create database.
Oh.
You can do all your database stuff right from the page now. But does not appear to be working.
Unknown database dev. I start a console.
Could it be the
It's a
route?
server.
Could it be the route that?
Shouldn't be. Big.
So how do you know you've got two servers starting up in your Compose?
Yes.
When you connect to your local server and your local console, are you connected to those?
Yeah, so that was another thing.
Because that
That
doesn't.
really hasn't covered, so like I think this one will work. I'm not sure what's going on with this server, but I can look at the connection here, right? And it's gonna give me a ton of information, but it's going to tell me that I'm connected to database pizza deliveries dev on port 3300.
Okay.
So something this does is it connects to the writing database by default. So that's the primary. That is the one that's on port 3300. So, I think I know what the problem might be. Other files in the show. I'm going to comment this out for a moment.
Start the maybe run the server.
Yeah, maybe I might have had a bug in that. There we go.
Hey, back on track.
Yep. So this is something I was going to cover. So although we've defined two databases here, right? A writing primary and a reading one. All activity by default is going to happen on the writing primary. It doesn't, Rails isn't making any assumptions on our usage here. This read only is going to be it's going to be unused until we define the rules for using it. So I'll jump back to my console here. Just look at the connection again. And there's a ton of information here, but you take a look at config and it tells you what you are currently connected to. So I'll demonstrate this by
And specifically the port, right?
it's the port, yeah. So we can, from within here, we can conditionally switch the connection. Not really switch the connection, but we can temporarily use another one. I'm going to open the Scratchpad real quick where I have this example. You can give it a block, an active record base connected, and tell it the role we want to connect to. So we can say put pizza delivery dot connection here. So I'm going to copy that into my console. Then we can. Yes, it's clear there's something wrong with that database. It doesn't know about it, and this actually has to do with setup.
What if you kill and reopen the console? Would that make a difference?
It's the replicable setup, so it doesn't actually know about it. I thought I tested this quite a bit beforehand. This is a Docker issue. I'll show you the Docker compose for this. So it's might have to actually. That's not going to be worthwhile in this talk. There's replication rules you have to define in the replica server to actually make it a replica. So that might not work here. Well, I'll continue on regardless. Through an error, it's trying to connect to the other database in our config, so that it would have done something there. I think they'd already do like pizza delivery dot count. That will also fail. Now look, let me get this out running. I wonder if there's a setup that I was missing there. Yeah, I know what happened. I killed actually dropped the server, dropped the database server and recreated, so all the configuration went away. I have a scratch pad of replication stuff. I'm gonna see if I can identify it real quick. I don't think I can. Let's create a table. So you have to basically create a replica user on the replica database, and then you have to change the replication first. I will try it real quick.
So if you can't figure it out, multi-connection through Rails
Hmm.
is not tied to the databases actually replicated. So you probably
Right.
still show what you want to show, just that data will automatically.
It's not gonna, I'm not gonna show
Replicate.
this stuff actually copying over. But let's see here. So yeah, you can switch connections like that. So that's one thing I'm gonna show. The other thing I'm gonna show is, sorry, I'm jumping around. There's this initializer that you can get. With the documentation, they talk about a multi-DB file, and by default, you get this thing that's commented out. So this is what was failing before. So there's these things called database resolvers, and when you're using a read-write structure, you can create your own resolver, or you can use the one that Active Record provides. The one that Active Record provides changes your server to favor the read database, but it will, if it sees that there's write activity, like if you're doing like pizza delivery.create, it will switch over to the write database, and it will stay there for a period of time. And that's what this is doing. But you would ordinarily write your own resolver here to determine when should I use the read and when should I use the write. And it might not be time based like theirs is. It might be user based or permission based or some other things. That's why when I had this in place before, and I had to restart the server, now it will now I'm going to go back to throwing that error. And then I completely killed it, didn't I? Yeah, I did. That's right. Anyway.
Okay, so what about
That's kind of how that works.
multi-tenancy or connecting particular models to a particular database?
Yeah, so you can, when I showed application record before,
Mhm.
This is an abstract class. So let's say we had a model user, right? And I'm just going to copy the top of this. So let's say that user lives on a different database than pizza delivery. And maybe like you can have like a company table that there's just some other information that lives separately from most other tables. You could say that, okay, well, most of my data is going to come from primary here, right? Let's just comment this out. Let's say that we want our pizza delivery to come from primary, and we want our users to come from a separate one. You can't do this. This will actually fail. If I say like, maybe I have like a users database, that will actually fail. Wonder if I can show that actually. I did like user. Yeah, so it's going to say, I'm going to move this thing up. Connects to can only be called on active record base or an abstract class. So what you would do in this case is either A, create a separate abstract class from application records. We can call this like, user DB record, and app models, user DB record. And so that can either inherit directly from active record base, or if you had shared behavior in application record that you still want to retain, you can inherit from application record as well. So they can be, they can inherit from each other, but the important thing is to do self-abstract class is true. If just mark it as an abstract class like that, there can only be one primary abstract class, and that's usually application record, but yeah, this is kind of the important thing here. So if I were to put that here, this is going to fail still because I don't actually have that, but let's reload, right? Yeah, so I was just complaining that the database doesn't exist. So that's how you would kind of split up your models to different databases.
And then what about multi-tenancy when your modeling would be the same, but you want to connect to a different database because of you being on a particular
Yeah,
URL?
that's coming up. So
Okay, cool.
let me undo that, delete. Okay. Let's check out whatever I have. So I suspect my multiple write database is going to be not working too, although no, that's not doing replication now, so I think that's going to work.
Would you have to bring the Docker image down before you switch branches?
Yeah, it's already down.
Do you have to remove it?
I think I do, yeah. Thank you. And this one, I realized last week this was overkill. I actually could have used one server on here and then just have multiple databases within it, but
Do you have to change branches first?
I will have to change branches, yes. While that's starting up, that's MySQL multiple write. Okay. Let that run for a sec. So it's still activity. Okay. Yeah, so that one doesn't appear to be up. So you can already see here with you can kind of see they have like a primary and then like shard 1, 2, 3, and so on. So I have a migration for creating the table, and we see it actually ran multiple times. So let's figure out what's going on there. Let's go to our database config. So now we have just straight up multiple databases. They're not replicas or anything. They're just regular databases. I got one that's tagged primary, and then shard 1, 2, and 3. And then let's I'll leave that open. Application record, where before we had connects to database, now we have connects to shards. So when you have multiple writes going on, they call them shards. And then you just define the list of databases. You can have them named and labeled something different here. I forget what the meaning offhand behind like having the name separate from like the writing label. If they are going to be both read and write, then this is actually more or less syntax sugar because you can actually just do writing. But this is what's documented, so I would recommend sticking with what's documented. And then I actually have a primary, so I'm going to add that. I forgot to update this branch. So let's save that away, and then let's actually start the server. I want to make sure this works now. Okay, here we go.
Hey.
And we'll go ahead and create a record real quick. So we just started a Rails server and we did some write activity to it. So, well, we have multiple write databases now. So what happened? Which one did we write to? So we can check that a few ways. I think the easiest way to do that, not the easiest, but something that's going to be most indicative is go to controller for pizza delivery, and then we'll just we'll put the connection here. And I'm actually going to do pizza delivery. I want to get the full hash, which I believe is connection pool db configuration hash. So then here's our server log. Refresh this. We should see that it printed. There we go. So here's our database configuration, and we see that it's port 3300 *1. That's this one. Yeah.
Use the debug helper in the view.
The debug helper. Actually realized a little bug here. I'm going to restart this. I think because I changed the application controller whilst this was running. No, okay. You want to put a debugger in the view?
Just say debug and then click your line there instead of this.
You say the view or the controller?
Yeah, in the view is fine.
Debugger.
Debug.
Just debug.
And then put whatever you want out there.
Live in here?
Mhm.
Oh, I should bring it. Okay. Oh, nice. Oh, it's equal.
Yeah, you didn't print.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
I didn't know you do that.
Yeah, so that turns anything you pass it and renders it as a UML.
Nice. So we connected to this *1 by default, and I think I made it a little misleading because I changed this. So yeah, originally it was this. So it's using the first database in this configuration as the default. And that's just so Rails has something to connect to and perform basic activity.
So the order here matters
The order here matters.
on this specific file.
Yes. So once again, we have to kind of define the rules for how do we actually, I know why I connected this *1 specifically. It's not exactly doing what I was intending to demo. Once again, I said we have to define the rules for how database will connect. Well, back here in multi-DB, there's something called a shard resolver, which is similar to the database resolver. It's specifically for this use case of multiple write activity, and it's assuming that you're going to use requests, probably a request header of some sort to determine how which database you want to connect to. I'm going to comment this out. I actually want to show that if I have primary up here as the first one, and I restart this, we should connect to primary by default. Yep, so we see we're connected to dev primary, and there's actually no data here because we were on *1 initially. So that's ordinarily how you would manage connections. You'd probably be reading like user session or user email, try to figure out what company they're connected with, and then based on that, connect to the appropriate database. I showed this connected to block before. You can do the same thing here, but instead of you calling it role, you call it shard. But if I were to do shard 2, I'm going to put it's a delivery account. Actually, I don't need puts. I can just do that. Alright, so it works the same in the console, by the way. If I do open the console, and I paste that. Connected to shard 2, there's no,
And then if you go shard 1,
if I go to shard 1, there should be one entry in there. That's what we were connected to
Yeah.
first. I don't think there's any gotchas. Oh, so when we were running our migrations, I know we're like a lot of log activity here now, but scroll up far enough. When I ran db migrate, you can see, okay, we created a stable 4 times. That was Rails connecting to each of our write databases and running that migration. So if I inspect the migration, I have, one migration is creating a table, but you might be used to seeing a schema.rb file, right? And this is just the Rails representation of what should be the current state of your database schema. It is possible to create migrations that target specific databases, so your schema may vary. So back to your thing, Matt, about having different tables on different databases or different models on different databases, that's where you might have a different schema. So if I look at my DB folder, I actually have DB schema, shard 1, 2, and 3. So like they're the same because I just use the same migration on all of them. And the way you change that, what I understood with the docs, I don't have an example here. In the database config, you can set a migration path. So if primary is going to be different, it would be something like db,
with Rails being convention over configuration, it's not deciding that on its own. I would assume it would make its own
it's a, I mean,
folder based on the name.
let me try something here. That migration that I have predates this setup.
Yeah, so, and that was my next question, like, if you've got multi-tenancy across databases, that means your table should at least match.
Yes, and so
If you do a migration, I would expect that same change to make it into each.
and I think that they're explicitly supporting multi-tenancy. So if you look at the documentation, there's a section called horizontal sharding. This is what this whole setup is, and it's specifically for multiple databases with matching schemas. So, but I tried it. Different migration create. Yeah, we'll do that one. So yeah, if I create a new migration for like create users, it's in the same directory, db migrate. So you'd have to like change the directory of
Well, that was just a general migration. So if you run that, is it going to change all of those files?
yes. Yeah, ran 4 times.
Okay, so I expect that. Because they're the same. You have no differences.
Correct.
Now, is there a command to say, I want to generate this migration for this particular
I didn't see a command. Let's go with the docs. Or the guide, I should say, something or the docs.
Some sort of generator.
So,
Yeah, I have to believe there's some sort of key that you could add somewhere.
so here they show, and this is their basic setup section, but here they talk about having like a main and a replica, but then they have like this other model. This is what they talk about. You know, animal record. Like this would be like another abstract class that they're using, like I was showing before. But here they have it. They're generating a separate path for migrations, and this is where I'm led to believe it based off of that.
So that paragraph right at the bottom by the fold, it says, lastly, for new write databases,
That's
you need
what
to
I
set migration path to the directory where you will store migrations for that database. So it's interesting, it sounds like it does have to be explicit.
Yeah, I don't see anything here about command. Well, actually, let's read this in depth. Because you can,
So it's create primary, migrate,
Oh, can you just
migrate
from
primary,
one?
you could migrate one.
you can migrate
Migrate
one.
a specific one?
So if you do it Rails G, oh, so do that, so just say Rails G. So that'll tell you
I'll tell you migration.
migration. So if you do Rails G migration, then you probably do like a dash H. So it doesn't look like they've added anything in here.
Dash DB, the database for your migration.
Oh,
By default, the current environment.
current primary. So yeah, you could do.
We could do this.
So
Okay, so if we like scaffold a new thing, not like users, but something else, like
I'm gonna
pizza? No, not pizza.
I'm gonna roll
Pasta?
back. I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna roll back. What else?
or just generate widgets, not
Yeah.
say DB.
Yeah, migration widgets dash DB. And when you're using dash, it's like dash equals.
It's a flag, so you don't have to say equals.
Equals and space are the same command line.
Okay.
typically.
Let's say sharp 2. Didn't put a prefix on that, but
Let's see with the migration, like it has to declare it somewhere. Interesting.
it doesn't look like this did anything to.
Do you have to migrate it?
Well, this just generates the file, right? And it's created in like DB migrate. When I go to run it, let me read these. Let me go back and read these docs, right? Dash DB or dash database. Database for your migration. Migration. Does the order of the flags matter?
Should, but you could try that. You could just force it. Yeah,
I'll generate to properly create widgets. That's an argument.
you could just generate one.
Well, I'm trying to see like this particular option here if they want. Let me just try it
Well,
again.
go to the top of the declaration, it tells you where you can do things. It says generate migration name, field type index, then options. So yeah, at the end, should be correct. You didn't give it anything, no, like give it something, like name.
try it with the equals.
Oh, 0, 4, so
Yeah, they're like
dash dash 4s.
still said identical.
That's because it didn't change. That's just the loop.
Yeah, it just creates a class. There's
Right, see what it does. You can always roll it back.
yeah.
Ship it.
Yeah, it went across everything.
Okay, let's roll it back. And then can you do like a db migrate dash dash database?
You can migrate just the one. You could say db migrate : shard 2.
Oh, yeah.
Which is what
But that's
they're
not.
actually saying that you have to do that here. You're using a multiple database application to use rollback, you must run a specified a namespace tag for that version. So
Wow.
interesting. I wonder what the logic with that is. Primary.
Okay, so you've rolled all that back. Go add the declaration for migrations path explicitly, and then try to do it and see if that changes anything.
Yeah, so we'll say, let's do it on shard, was it 2? Migrations path, let's spell that right.
Yeah.
DB, shard to migrate.
Mm.
I still have that here.
Didn't see the update.
Oh, is it like behind? Oh, it says we're unstable. Yeah, I just tried to run it again and it put it in the same.
It's back up to date.
I see.
Okay, well, what does that file look like soon?
Create widgets. Yeah,
Okay.
but it looks like you can, based off of this, you can migrate specific.
Yeah, but that's, if you have a migration that's living, that every database is gonna see it, the fact that you migrate one specifically isn't gonna change the fact that the next time you hit migrate, it's just gonna do them all.
Run everything.
Well, what if you moved it manually into that folder? Then when you did migrate, would it just migrate that one? That would seem weird, but.
Great. I think it's in when I don't have the directories, shard to migrate.
There's a flag.
What's the normal structure? Is DB migrations or DB migrate? What is this?
DB migrate.
So DB migrate. So I would do DB migrate shard 2. And it's up to you.
Actually, we should go file about that. All right. Get rid of this.
Oh.
And move it into it because the folder didn't exist. But yeah, you're saying like migrate shard 2. I wonder if it has to be in that location.
Sure, there's systems documentation usually. So.
I don't know about the dash dash DB, but we'll go ahead and delete that. Do DB migrate shard2.
Okay. Now we run the migrations, right?
Yeah, let's try it. Huh. Still apply to all of them. That is strange.
Wait, when it did that, did it migrate one of them?
It's the
See
same,
that
it's the
path?
same migration, right? And because I saw it print 4 times.
So this says, Rails generators now take a dash dash database option so that the file is generated in the correct directory. The command can be run like Rails generate migration thing column dash dash database. Let's be explicit about it. Just do it that way. So don't do that. Don't do shard2. I want to see what Rails does by default. Like it should know
You
based
want,
on naming what folder you put things in. You shouldn't have to. Like to me, declaring a migrations path is an override, which Rails allows, but should already have a convention to say, I know what this is called. I'm just going to put it in a folder called shard2. So do your command again. Like roll back your widgets. You can just do a Rails R or a Rails D migrate create widgets. You can just do that same command, but just remove the G and put a D.
D,
Yeah,
delete the migration.
that's fine. So it'll destroy that.
Okay.
Now do the generate again. And you're gonna say, so give it, just so that we're sure structure's fine, give it a column of like name.
What is name string?
You don't even have to declare a string, but that's fine. And then dash dash.
It's still,
Okay. So according to the guides, that should do that.
and it does not.
Two create widgets now. This is the one we just generated.
So it's still typing.
Yeah, it disconnected for a second. I saw it flash. But yeah, let's.
Oh, this is interesting too. If you scaffold, I'm guessing the same thing works with model generator. If you give it a database, it will create the abstract for you. To automatically connect it to the right database.
If you scaffold the application and tell it.
If you scaffold, if you do a scaffold generator. But I'm guessing doing a model generator would do the same thing. So, so delete those files and do the same thing, but do a model instead of.
I would just check out your project at this point.
Good call. Get rid of that. So it'll shoot back here. That shouldn't exist anymore. Right? No. Not even more confused.
Check your Git again.
No.
It's untracked.
Okay.
Alright, yeah. What do you got?
So now you could do Rails G model widget name dash dash database
equals.
It doesn't have to.
New one, right? Doesn't have to be like shard 5? Ooh.
Yeah,
So it did create the abstract. It did not put the migration in a folder.
Where'd you see the abstract?
it's the shard 2
Model
record.
shard 2 record.
2 record. Yeah, so it should create a shard 2 record, right? And then that's,
And take a look at your migration. There's nothing explicitly saying to only go to that database. That's interesting.
is it assuming that you're supposed to run migration on that? Yeah, right, that doesn't make any sense, because when you,
You wouldn't know. I couldn't look at that migration and know that I was only supposed to run.
there's nothing in that class that specifically says it, unless it's like, yeah,
Sounds like a bug.
a bug.
Send the video in.
I'll try the scaffold thing later. I think it's cool.
You can also pass dash dash parent.
Did they have the dash dash in the end? Dash dash database?
You can pass dash dash parent if you want to have it generate with a different abstract. Automatic role switching. That's the resolvers. Okay. Migrations for multiple databases should live in their own folders prefixed with the name of the database key in the configuration. You also need to set the migrations paths
They do want you to do that.
in the database configuration. Tell Rails where to find the migration. So you had migrations path before.
Yeah,
It says here it's migrations paths.
migrations paths.
Paths.
Is it in an array, or is it like, is it in a list?
Well,
Yeah, I'm gonna,
Just double quotes?
you need to set the migrations paths.
alright, well, we're gonna redo that now.
For example, the
Did you
animals
just lose
database
migrations?
would look for migrations in the DB animals migrate directory.
Migrations paths.
Oh, interesting. You can even set
It
there were
did this time, so when I had, right, 'cause I had migrations path before, which, humanly makes sense, but migrations paths. with an
Can we
S.
give it another path, like with the cow?
well, it's YAML, so you would pass it dashes to do it.
So now we have create widgets, right?
Actually, that's valid. So you should try that. If you kill that,
Kill it. Kill it with fire.
What's that?
kill the code, or you could just you haven't run it, right? So
No.
you could just full force it. If you go back to the database YAML. And kick that down a line, put a dash in front of it. Just one dash.
Like so,
Yeah.
use space.
It is space, yeah.
Right.
So that's how you represent an array. So if your theory is correct, that would still generate the way we would expect.
Oh,
So
okay.
give that a try.
Do you need a force?
I did it, yeah.
Like, what if you put like another one in there, like
That's valid. So now put a second one, see if it does.
with the dash and all? In YAML?
Yeah, so every dash in YAML
Is a
that's
column.
under a key is an item in an array.
Got
Okay, let's do it.
How to change, right? Now,
So it did.
so fuck the first one.
So it's migrations paths.
Some weird English.
Migrations paths.
Okay,
Cool.
so now, let's see, migrate. It already exists, but it only tried running once. Let's do something else. Let's do
Pasta.
Pasta.
Enough with the pizza, let's do pasta.
Pasta. What was called pasta?
Oh,
For a singular?
wow, the plural of pasta.
The singular.
Let's get some pasta.
I have pastum.
Oh, the pastum is the singular?
I guess
One
Can I have a
pastum.
pastum?
get rid of this migration set. This will.
If you're using shards, make sure to set migrations path for the same path for all shards. When generating a migration, you can pass -- database option and use one of the shard names. Since they all set the same path, it doesn't matter which one you choose.
No, it ran this against everything.
Oh, what do we do different? Can you up arrow? Oh, you did, okay.
No, because you don't have migration paths set up, right?
That's how you do the shard. You do that resolver to do shard switching. And it takes a block. Well, in this example, it takes a lambda that
You try out the multi-DB file.
that takes a request, and then you can figure out which
Yeah.
database to connect to basically.
So that's where you already like have
Current
your
user or something
user.
like that.
Yeah.
Wait, so why didn't this work?
Whether it won't work.
Wait, when you created the migration, did it put it in the right folder?
It did put it in the right folder.
But then when you ran the migration, it still ran all of them.
Yeah, it's in shard 2, but it's in shard 2 and
I would have ran it all.
it ran against all using stuff.
Did it, or is it just outputting that way because it's got better databases?
Let's look at the schema. So we have schema 2, right? So now we have
Pasta right up at top.
and then we go to shard 1. We have pasta.
Okay,
against
that's
pasta.
All right, so this multi-database stuff is super worth it.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna jump out of here. And,
So I guess the takeaway is like, from what we're seeing, if you just wanted to insert things to these databases, you could insert them individually. But like in terms of like migrations and schemas, like.
Yeah, the takeaway that I'm getting right now is be careful with that and run your migrations separately. But you should be able to do Rails DB migrate, right? Because if you think about if you're like doing automatic deploys, you want to run your migrations. I shouldn't have to say DB migrate shard 1, DB migrate shard 2. I should be able to just do DB migrate stuff.
Is there something we could have done to the migration file to,
Somebody's doing it.
hey,
Hello?
so is there something we could have done to the migration file itself to point to a specific database?
You're like so.
Hello.
Hey,
Okay.
Ryan, I think John's trying to say something.
Where his dog is. John, was that your dog?
John,
Which John?
Oh, okay, was that your dog?
Yeah, mine's barking. I'm gonna go back on mute. I thought the other John, Mr. Grant, was trying to say something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe he's
John
connecting his
Grant,
audio.
we see you toggling your mute.
Yeah, I just did. Sorry, I was not muted. I'm muted. I'm muting.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Man, his audio sounded great.
So I guess I have a few slides just to kind of like recap what we went over. Originally I was planning to demo like the replica stuff and then go over some slides and demo the right stuff. We kind of went over everything at once. So recapping the replica app configuration. By default, the list of database, it can do Rails expects it to do read and write. If you're using multiple databases, you have to give them all unique names. So in our example, we had like primary and primary replica, or shard1, shard2 for the write. To make a database read only, you set replica true, and then you have to define your roles in application record. Can I drag this? That's fine anyway. Active record enforces read only on replica databases. Wasn't able to demo this part because I wasn't able to actually connect to the replica. But if you were to do like pizza delivery create, well, one's going to run through validations, but if validations pass, it will then throw an active record exception saying that the database you're currently connected to is read only, and it won't let you actually attempt the create or save. And then for migrations, if you have a read only as a second database, you don't have to worry about the migration step rigmarole. And this is actually an important note. Replicas, they're a database concept. They're not a Rails managed thing. So when you perform an insert to your database using active record, it is not active record that is copying that data over. Rails expects that that's all managed to the database level. So as far as Rails is concerned, replicas are just read-only databases. There's not any data copying mechanism within Rails. So as such, Rails is ignoring schema migrations. Migrations are only applied to the write, and if you have your database set up correctly, your other read databases will inherit those schema changes. Connection management, as we discussed, Rails will use the main write database by default. This is just kind of so things generally work by default. So we have to define rules or scenarios for changing our usage. So if we have isolated queries, we can put things in active record base connected to block, specify the database we want to use, and then everything within that block will run against that connection. Or we can do it with a connection resolver. The default one we observed will connect to it'll favor the read database, but if it identifies write activity is going to occur, it will switch connections to that. Most of this is going to be the same for the write. All databases must have a unique name. Let's see. So when you define your connections, or not your connection, when you define your databases in application record, and you start a Rails server, by default, we're going to connect to the first database listed. And this is, once again, just so things work. So we need to provide additional functionality to tell Rails how we want to connect to these other databases. The terminology that is used in the Rails documentation for multiple write databases with the same schema, they call it horizontal sharding. So if you look at their documentation, that's what they'll refer to this as. But this is typically used for multi-tenancy scenarios. And then, yeah, what we covered earlier, it's possible to use separate databases on separate models / tables. So you just create a separate abstract class for that database, or I guess it could be multiple databases even. And then covered schemas and migrations, the traditional single database application. You have a DB schema, RB file, which tracks our current schema state, but when we have multiple databases, we actually get multiple schemas as well. And as we saw, migrations really want to apply to each write database, but as we were looking in the documentation, probably with a little more practice, we could probably get it to target specific databases as well.
This one has migrations plural, and then path instead of.
That's how I read it.
And then when we wrote it later, it was migration paths with like a singular migration.
No, migrations, paths.
So it's a double plural.
Double plural. And then connection management, this is all pretty much the same as well. I don't really know where you use connected to blocks for multiple write scenarios. I'm sure there's use cases I'm not aware of, but if you're doing this for multi-tenancy, you probably want to look at the requests object to see, what kind of user you have connecting, or if they're even authenticated, and direct them to the right database accordingly. I have a small section here on SQL replication, but any questions on any of the multiple database stuff so far?
Not that I've already asked.
Could you show us how you might pick one database, like when they're logged in with a certain role versus when they're logged in with a different role?
When they're logged in with a certain role.
Yeah, like,
So
okay.
it's a little tricky for me to download, but I don't actually have
Like, wasn't
user
there a,
authentication, but I can show you back in this multi-DB.
yeah,
So there's a Lambda function here with a request argument, and I'm not using it, but debugger should, in theory, be able to start a REST server and make a request and have it stop on that Lambda. Take a look at what's going on there, right? Okay. So let's take a look at what request is. Action dispatch request. Somewhere in here I expect to see headers. I guess that's what they are. Headers. It's the way to see like the list of methods.
LS?
LS.
It's LS request. It's headers.
Yeah, so
I'll just do LS request, see what you have available to you. You should be able to have like path and all that stuff. URL. Ruby meetup database.
pizza delivery slash.
Or even a query string, that won't affect anything, yeah, do that.
cool,
So now how, right now we're on dev primary, right?
yeah.
But if this is a return sharp one. Well, we can do request dot any params.
Well, you've now refreshed it with the new one, so let's see what the path is that's coming back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that's what we're
params,
here.
yeah,
So we
okay.
can say,
So the
we can
params
just
equals that.
return, like request dot params keys first.
Yeah, just say has key.
Equals shard.
Just say has key shard 2.
Yeah.
And then if that's true, connect to the other database.
Yeah, so then you can put that logic, if one, yeah. And then I guess by default, it goes to the other one.
And then we can get rid of the debugger.
Else. Go sharp one. Okay.
And is that in an initializer?
Yeah, I'm going to, yeah, cancel it. Got rid of my print stuff here. Right, because that was from before.
I have to do that.
You was having multiple tabs open. Yeah.
Did you say the joys of having multiple tabs open?
Yep. So now we're connected to SHA-2 because he passed in this query parameter.
Super cool.
And then, we take that back out. Now we're back connected to SHA-1. So, yeah, ordinarily you probably use headers with some user information, but here we just used plain old query params.
Well, I mean, if it's for multi-tenancy, I would expect you to have a subdomain or something like that. Like you're literally just pulling a string
Yeah.
out of the request and saying, hey, does this match something I know about?
Yeah, it's true. Like it had customer.myapp.com,
Yep.
and they could just use the subdomain as
And that would be just complete siloing of your data then.
right.
There wouldn't be, your app wouldn't have queries that are like, find tenant and then tenant.users. You would just say user.find.
You're saying like if the app itself is completely siloed to
If
its
it's
own,
completely siloed,
then none of this applies. So then you're just like you have like
no, that would apply because your code would change. If you have a separate database for every one of your tenants,
right.
you don't have to silo your code. You're just doing a lookup, like user find ID.
Oh yeah, that's what you're saying.
I'm not
It's the
saying
same silent
tenant
code.
users find ID.
You're not multi-tenancy. You're not doing multi-tenancy at the code level. You're doing it at the database
Yeah,
level.
you take care of it at the request level, change your database, and then.
Yes, I follow.
Yay.
And then you never have to worry about one of those problems like, oh, I forgot to scope my query and now tenant A is seeing tenant B's billing or something like that.
Yeah, that's the I think that's the fear that these are the pros and cons to consider with multi-tenancy. Because application level multi-tenancy could totally work fine, that you only have one database. But yeah, I've been at multiple places that prefer to do it at the database level like this, just because it's peace of mind. Yeah, so I guess these slides, I'll describe them real quick. This is just some research that I've done on replication. I'll admit I don't fully understand it yet, so I'm going to do some more research, and then one of my future talks will probably be on this topic. So replication in MySQL, you have this binary log file position. I understand this is the original way they did replication, so you can imagine you have a log file of all the activity in your main database, and you have replicas / followers.
Can you define replication first?
Yeah, replication is it's data being copied from one database to another. So there's different nomenclature going around. There's replication, there's replicas, there's slaves, there's followers. They all kind of mean the same thing. Basically, when you define a replica, you tell it which, you tell that particular server, hey, I'm going to follow a different database. I'm not going to do any of my own inserts, essentially. So you give it the address to its source, and then it reads the log file from its source, and it basically replays that log. So the log's going to be everything that ever happened on it, every insert, every table change, every user change. It's going to basically ingest everything.
So at the beginning of your talk, you were talking about replicas, and they used an adapter, and in this case, it was a MySQL adapter, and now you're talking about how MySQL does the
Yeah,
replication.
this is under the hood with
Okay.
MySQL. So as far as Rails is concerned, we're just telling it that that replica is read-only. It doesn't know that Rails doesn't know what this is doing behind the hood. It's just saying, hey, I don't want to do any kind of write activity. This is just supposed to follow another database that gets its real data. So apparently there were problems with this. I forget if it's like efficiency or security. I can imagine some log entries are problematic, like if you have users being altered or having permissions being altered, maybe you don't want those in your replica. So they created this transaction-based method. I forget what GTID now stands for. I wrote it there. But you can, I guess, scope what log entries are read. So if you only want to get data, you can get just data and not schema changes and not other changes. So, but it effectively what we're saying, we have a log file and we're basically ingesting that log into our read database. And then in Postgres, they have two methods as well. Streaming is, this is similar to I think it's similar to the MySQL approach, where you just have the replica that's constantly connected to the source, and it's, I guess it knows that Postgres knows what's connected to what, and events will just be streamed to the followers as they come in. Then you also have logical replication. I think I'm guessing the reason they have this is if there was ever a connection severed between the database, you'd still want a way to recover. So logical replication is a pub/sub model. So as events occur on the source, it creates publications, and then subscriber databases can read the publications, figure out what was my last publication that I took in, and how many new ones are there, and then it will just ingest those events. I created a Docker setup with the logical replication, and found that it only took in data events. That didn't take in schema changes, which I thought was a little odd. And doing some research, like you have to create basically a whole separate process for updating the schema with that. Like it's not an automatic thing. You either have to do it manually, or you have to create some background process. So I'm going to try the streaming replication. Cool. Yeah, that's it. I'll share these slides in the recording, and